Hello YouTube, this is Froogle, and here we are in my 737 from Pmdg. I've got to thank Cool Sky McFat for doing this amazing livery for me. Now, as you can see, this aircraft's a bit beaten up. It's my training aircraft, and it's beaten up to the point that things break on it. We're expecting today to have an engine failure on takeoff, also known as a V1 cut. That's the point at which the engine gives out as soon as it calls V1. Now, as soon as V1 is called, that's really the point of no return. You have to take off. So I'm really going to walk through, as I understand it, what to do after a V1 cut. Now, bear in mind, I'm not a professional pilot. I have spoken to a professional pilot about the procedures I'm about to do, and I pretty much got them down, but I'm not a pro. If you go and look at the Baltic Aviation School here on YouTube, they have a really good video showing how to do this for real in a full 737 simulator. But I'm going to do the Froogle version. What you're going to need to do this yourself, by the way, is a PDF called the 737-800 QRH, which is supplied with Pmdg's aircraft. So make sure you've got that to handy. That's the quick reference handbook. It has the normal checklists in it. It also has the non-normals, and what we're about to do is officially called a non-normal, because we don't expect the engine to fail. Let me show you how this works. We bring up the CDU down here. Now, I'm all set up. I'm at Sanford, Orlando Sanford, runway 27 right. We're going to take off, just showing some passengers around, sightseeing almost. So we don't have a full flight plan. We're just going to take off and climb. We've been cleared to take off and climb to an altitude of 3,000 feet and go on our way, which is fantastic. To set up the V1 cut, we go to menu, go to Pmdg setup, go to aircraft failures. Now, you have a full failure system in all Pmdg aircraft, and it's pretty extensive. I mean, it's incredibly extensive. You can fail anything, and you can make it completely random. We're not going to do that because we want to practice a specific failure just like a real pilot would. So we're going to engine, and we're going to program failures. We have EEC1, EEC2 failures, severe damage like a bird strike, flame out. We're not going to do anything as grandiose as that. We are going to do V1 cut. So we'll do engine 1, which is the left engine, V1 cut. And we set it to armed, and we set it to active, other way around, active and armed, and say execute. What will happen now is as soon as we hit V1, the sim will automatically fail that engine. Okay, and then we have to figure out what we're going to do. Now, the shocking thing is, my friend Paul was talking to me about this, and he really wanted me to do this when he was here, and we did it together, but we didn't film it. He was very keen on me doing this because it's something that pilots practice a lot, and it's apparently quite good fun if you're not in the real aircraft. It's a little more not fun if you're in a real aircraft, but for simulator use, it's good fun. It's a good thing to practice, and shockingly for me, it's not as dramatic as you might think, as you're about to see. For example, alarms won't go off. You won't hear massive sirens ringing and alarm bells going glang, 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 glang. You won't hear people screaming in the back, but part of that is also our job to reinforce to the passengers that everything is okay. So, we're all set. Let me just double check everything here. We have V2 speed of 133 in there, 276, climbing to an altitude of 3,000. Flight directors are armed, auto throttle is armed, auto brake is on RTO. All the lights are on and where they should be. So I think we're good to go. Let's reset track IR. I'm going to hold this on the toe brakes, increase the engine to about 50%, 40-50%, let it stabilize, just as normal. Alright, and increase power, hit toga. Now we have to pretend that we didn't know what's going to happen, so we'll pretend that we don't know what's going to happen, alright? But everything's all good. Now, I wouldn't say this is a common occurrence in an aircraft, but it's not unheard of, and it is something that most professional pilots are very familiar with and know how to deal with. V1, oh, there's our engine failure. We are rotating. Notice how slow it was, and we had a massive shift to the left. Positive rate gear up. No alarms. We are climbing very, very slowly, and we're following the flight director right now. Now, the key right now is to fly, not to do anything else. Don't mess with checklists, don't worry about anything other than flying the aircraft, and that's exactly what we're going to do. But while we're doing this, we'll just talk to the passengers in the back. So, ladies and gentlemen in the back from the cockpit, this is your captain. We have experienced a bit of a warning light and a problem with one of the engines, so to be better safe than sorry, we've shut the engine down and we're going to be returning to the airport. It's nothing to worry about. This aircraft is more than capable of flying on just one engine, and we should be back on the ground within about 10-15 minutes. So just sit back, relax, and hopefully we can get you on your way fairly soon. So there you go. The passengers are all set at ease. We continue climbing. Our acceleration height is going to be 1,500 feet. So we're going to climb up to 1,500. We're still not worrying about any checklist at all. All we're concerned about right now is flying the aircraft. I have quite a lot of pressure on the right pedal, so I'm going to trim the rudder to the right. so I can reduce that pressure. Oh, nasty yaw there because of the right engine. Oops, auto throttle just went off. We just lost the auto throttle. Not a big deal. Alright, so we're going to nose down now. Pick up a little bit of speed. We're above 1500. We're all good. So speed's coming up nicely. A little bit more right rudder trim. And to get out of the pattern, by now we would have spoken to ATC, of course. And ATC would have told us what to do, but we're going to presume they'll tell us to turn right and get out of the pattern and figure out, you know, until we're sure of what it is that we're going to do. We're going to presume that we're going to return, obviously. So, heading select, level change, on we go with the autopilot. We'll monitor the autopilot, make sure it's able to continue. We still have our flaps down, which is perfectly normal. Always worrying to see that degree of bank with only one engine. So good, the autopilot's managing. We heard a bit of a trimming going on there as well. I'm going to bring up the flaps now. Almost on schedule. And we're just going to climb up to about 3,000 and hold it right there. So speed's coming up nicely. We're at flaps 1. We are in good shape. We're still climbing on up. Aircraft should start to level at 3,000. We'll make sure it does. We are most interested right now in monitoring the aircraft more than anything else. Alright, flaps up. Looks like we're doing great. We have lost the auto throttle, so we'll need to manage the engine ourselves. So bring back the power a little bit on that right engine. And we'll set the MCP up here to show that we want to be at about 210. Alright, after takeoff checklist, air conditioning and pressurization is set. Start switches, both go to off at this point. Lights off. What else have we got? I'm looking down here. Flaps up, no lights. Good. Flaps are up, no lights. We are going a little bit too fast. We do need a bit more rudder trim here, so let's see if we can do that. Just try to level us off. And once we're confident that the aircraft is flying and it's stable and nothing else is going horribly wrong, we'll clear these cautions and we will turn to the QRH, which is section 7.14, engine control, engine failure or shutdown. So we're going to do an engine shutdown because flight conditions now allow it. Auto throttle, if engaged, should be disengaged, which it is. Thrust lever, engine number 1 confirmed, engine number 1 closed. So we're going to pull that down and off. Engine start lever, engine number 1 confirmed, engine number 1 shut off. We're going to turn off the packs on engine number 1 now, like so, and we're going to start the GPU, sorry, APU. GPU is a little bit behind us. Let that come on up. Now we're looking at our fuel. We do have an imbalance situation coming up, so we're going to fix that by turning on crossfeed. We're going to turn off the right pumps just to fix the fuel imbalance. Speed is coming up a little bit, so we're going to bring the power back again. And having spoken to ATC, we are going to return to Sanford, runway 27 right, which is where we took off from. So back up here, departures and arrivals, Sanford, 27 right, and they're telling us to go direct to New Smyrna, which is north of the airport and fairly close to our current route. So we will do that one. Route, great, activate, execute, legs, bring New Smyrna up to the current position. Execute and turn on LNAV. We can't go VNAV, but we can go LNAV. And because we turned, we're in good shape. Now what we could do at this point is try to restart the engine. Let's just make sure that we follow on course. We have a fuel warning, which is normal because of the crossfeed we just set up. Just making sure that we're managing here. We're going to keep that speed down to about 210. Everything so far though is looking good, nice and stable. We have no more warning lights. The autopilot is holding on. And as we roll out here, let's just increase the range so we can see how much room we have to work with if we're going to try and do a restart. We have about 20 miles, not a lot. So, over on the QRH, engine in-flight start, section 7.18. Thrust lever, engine number 1, confirmed close. Engine start lever, engine number 1, confirmed closed. And we're going to try a windmill start. So we're going to turn the engine start switch to flight. This one, all the way over to flight and watch. Nope, it's recommending a cross bleed start. So we'll turn engine number 1 all the way back to ground. We'll check the pressure over here. We're good. Okay, engine number 1 is not going to come up, so we'll leave engine number 1 off. Engine number 2, we're going to continuous now, and that's it. We'll let it fly on the autopilot for the time being. We'll disengage the autopilot a little bit earlier than normal for the approach, but we are definitely going to land. We can't restart this engine. There is nothing else for it. We have to get the aircraft back on the ground, but it's not a problem. If you're a little bit scared of flying and watching this video, although I am not a qualified pilot, you should know it is nothing to be concerned about. Pilots train for this all the time. The aircraft is more than happy to fly with just one engine. Not a big deal. It just makes a little bit more work for me, the pilot. So let's go and plan our arrival. So back over into QRH, one engine in operative, arrival, landing. Plan for a flaps 15 landing. So flaps 15 gives us a VREF of 138. Maintain VREF 15 plus 5 knots, which is giving us a speed of 143 on the approach. Perfect. So let's go ahead and set all this up. So 110.15 is the ILS, course 275. So we'll set up the courses now. Watching that speed there, it's fluctuating around a little bit because it's a bit windy here today. Actually, looking at that wind, we're probably landing on the wrong runway, but whatever. Florida has pretty much localized weather, so I'm not going to worry about the wind too much. I have actually practiced this, and I know the wind is not a factor when we land. Alright, and we'll turn this one up 275 as well. Good. ILS is on 110.15, so done. And done. Nav 1 and nav turbo set. Speed is coming up a little bit too much. We're going to bring that down to about 210. We are going to be turning fairly soon. So we'll try to get our speed down to around about 210. And as we come out of the turn, then we'll start lowering the speed some more. Getting the flaps out ready. Referring back to the QRH, pressurization. We'll make sure the landing altitude is set, which it is at 50 feet. We are landing at flaps number 2, so we have already settled that in, VREF plus 5. We know we're going to be doing a VREF of 143. Let's check recall. So we have a fuel warning because of the fuel imbalance that was coming up in our cross bleed, and we have an electrics warning, which is quite normal. Yes, we did switch on the APU, but we're not currently using it, so we're going to switch that now. We'll get a warning, and the autopilot will disconnect, which is fine. We'll just turn it back on. Like so. Not a big deal. And then we have the rest of the warning lights completely normal because we've lost an engine. Next up, landing data. VREF is going to be 143 for us and minimum's 200. We can set the minimums in now if we wanted to. I'm not going to bother with that today. We're all good. Nothing to it. Speed is about where we want it to be. Let's make sure the engines hold us around 210. What we can try to do on some aircraft, you could probably re-engage the auto throttle at this point. Nope, no auto throttle for us today. So manual power adds a little bit of complication, but not a huge amount. And Sanford is over there behind us, so not too far to go at this point. Just going to hold 210. Not going to worry about flaps or gear or anything like that just yet. A little bit too early. It's a beautiful night here in Orlando. Now obviously, for those curious, and I know some of you will be, the sim here is prepared. I'm running 2.5 professional, as you know. And it's the Pmdg 737 NGX, running the 800 version in Froogle livery. Let me show you that real quick. There we go. You can see the engine is out right now. Here, there you go. One dead engine, not even windmilling. Oops. Not a big deal. Alright. So we'll use the MCP now. We'll reset our heading. Make sure that our heading always matches what we're actually doing. which is about there. We're going to bring the speed down now to about 180. That gives us the speed bug down here, so we can see where we're at. And we can start thinking about dropping flaps on schedule. Now again, because no auto throttle, need to stay on top of that. There's Stanford off to the right, just to the south of Lake Monroe. Bringing the speed down here. Might need to adjust that rudder trim again. So just feeding in a little rudder. There we go. Coming down on 190 now, so we'll go flaps 1. I'm going to try to hold 190. Already see the glide slope indicator coming up. We're too low, which is perfect. We are above minimum safe altitude, which is the key as well. When you get this, you need to climb to at least the minimum safe altitude. And here in Orlando, everything's flat. Nothing's really above 100 feet, so we're fine at 3,000. Oh, a little bit too low on that speed. Now bear in mind, every time I adjust the power here, the aircraft is going to yaw, because there is only one engine doing everything. That can be a little unsettling. There we go. Oh, actually a little bit too fast. I set 180, didn't I, on the speed? So let's let that come down again. Let's drop this now to about 160. See if we can get flaps 5 before the turn. Now we're not going to use auto brake for landing. We're going to turn that off. We'll lock the gear ready. Forgot to do that in the after takeoff checklist. Speed's coming down now. Flaps 2 and flaps 5, and we will hold 160. Looking good. Bit more power. That speed is fluctuating quite a bit. Waiting for this turn to happen. There's the airport. Let's just cross-check everything. 275, 110.15, 110.15, 275. Yeah, we're good. So after this turn, we're going to go VOR localizer, try to capture the localizer. And as soon as we have that, approach. Now the aircraft can actually auto land with just one engine, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to trust it. Things going wrong was unexpected, of course, so we'd rather not trust that anything else can go wrong, so we'll go manual fairly soon, but we'll let the aircraft stabilize itself. We don't need any more work than we've currently got. Alright, localizer's moving. So, VOR localizer now. Watching my speed there. Alright, let's set this to VREF 15 plus 5, which is there. Great. And as we roll out of here, waiting for it to capture and for that glide slope to come alive. I think the glide slope is alive, so I'll approach. Gear down, flaps 15. Landing checklist. So start switches should be on for the working engine. Watch our speed. Recall, we'll check recall and make sure nothing extras come up. Fuel and electrics, we're fine. Speed brake needs to be armed with a green light. There it is. Landing gear down, 3 green. Flaps, green light, we're good. We don't have flaps 15 though, we'll set that now. We're all set. So let's let the aircraft stabilize a little. It's having a hard time already because of the yaw. So I'm going to disengage the autopilot and take it over now. Getting quite a lot of yaw.
2500.
Using the rudder pedals here. Now earlier when I practiced this with these weather conditions, the wind was not a factor, but it looks like it actually might be this time. So ignore the fact that we have a tailwind, which is less than ideal. Let's get rid of that bright light, it's very distracting. Also noticing on my copy of Prepared here that my nav data might be out. It's showing the ILS is way off to the right, which is not. The runway is directly in front of us. So visual approach. We'll presume something else failed then. Giving us some kind of guidance failures here. There we go, wind's dropping now. I'm going to trim those up a little bit low. Try to get a stable approach. Stable being you don't need to feed in massive amounts of input. Just minor changes. Shouldn't be banging the yoke in and out and left to right and doing all this crazy stuff. The aircraft should be established and it should be stable. You shouldn't be doing any of that. So I'm making very, very minute adjustments with the yoke now, just trimming the aircraft as well. Trim is key. Fuel is coming back in balance, which is great. By the time we touch down, it should be perfectly in balance. Perfectly balanced, not imbalanced. Alright, so ignoring the fact that the ILS marker is wrong, glide slope is looking good. Just gentle, small adjustments. Just trim again. Hand on the throttle all the way down. Now one thing I missed, I just saw TA only come up. We should have turned the transponder onto TA only. You can't have TARA with one engine because you typically can't make the evasive maneuvers necessary for TARA. So we just have TA. I forgot to change that. But we don't do none of this nonsense of squawking 7.7 whatever. It's not a big deal. You speak to ATC, tell them you have a problem, and then calmly and efficiently plan how to mitigate that problem, which today was just return to the airport on a published approach to the runway that we took off on. The wind's dropping nicely. Oh, a little bit too high. Bringing the power back here. Speed was getting a little low there. Now it's a flaps 15 landing, which is odd. I did actually miss another step. We'll get onto that in a second.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
And down we go. Now manual braking. Nothing too severe. We'll let the aircraft go right to the end of the runway before we turn off. And we are down. Just watching the ground speed now on the navigation display. We're at 70 knots. We want to be turning off at about 20-25. Maybe actually a little bit slower because it's almost a 90-degree turn here. Down we go. There. Let's turn on some taxi lights here and runway turn-off lights. Accidentally hit the GPU, it doesn't matter. And we're down. What could be easier? Now the other thing I missed that you might want to do, on some aircraft, you might get a landing configuration warning at flaps 15 landing. So what you would do is flick this switch up here, and then flick that. That's the flaps warning inhibit thing, which has turned that off. But there you go. V1 cut in the Pmdg 737-800 with winglets. Very easy. Not a big drama. Good fun to practice, and I thoroughly urge you all to. I want to put the disclaimer out once again. I'm a YouTuber that makes videos on video games, predominantly simulations like this one. I am not a qualified pilot, so undoubtedly I miss stuff. it doesn't really matter. It's just a sim, just a bit of fun. I did try to follow the QRH, and I urge you to as well. As always, my name is Froogle. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you very soon.